Sandy, oh my goodness.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you past District Governor Doreen Kelsey, straight from Canada. Take it away,
everyone.
take it away,
Thank you so much.
Doreen, welcome.
It's great to be here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the participants so I can see if anybody is raising their hand. And because we have so many participants, if I miss, because I have to scroll to see who has their hands up, just go ahead and jump in.
Doreen, we can help you with that if you like.
Okay,
as well.
that's wonderful. Okay. And we have a lot of material to cover and we may not get through all of it. So I'm going to try to maintain an appropriate pace. If I go too fast, let me know. We can take our time and hopefully I will direct you to all the resources that you need so that after the session is over, you can go back and find them and dive in a little deeper if you want to. And I would like this to be interactive, so don't wait until the end to ask questions. We'll have a better outcome if everybody is asking questions and sharing their contributions as they go along. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
And Doreen, real quickly,
Yeah.
While you are facilitating this, Arturo is taking notes in the chat. So if anyone wants to kind of see what is being discussed, you can just open your chat and you'll see Arturo's notes.
Okay, and then it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think I need to be enabled.
Should be now, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Okay. Get to the right screen here. Okay, all right. So what we're gonna start with, I just wanted to make sure I was still signed in to my Rotary so that we can navigate the grants area next. But first, I would like for everyone to turn their attention to Insert 1. That's International Service Insert 1. What is an international service project? And we're just going to take a couple of minutes to review that if you haven't already had a chance to look at that in your curriculum. I'll give everybody a moment to do that. And what we're going to do is review the 7 aims of international service projects. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes and then we'll have our group discussion. Okay, I'd like to ask whoever would like to contribute, what are the benefits of getting involved in international service?
You get to meet people from other places and assist them.
Good.
You'll learn about other places and other people, other cultures.
Exactly.
You can do more with your resources when they're combined.
Good point. And does everybody remember what Jeff shared about the interactivity of the different aspects of Rotary, how projects help bring awareness and that can increase membership and help with fund development? Okay. What kinds of international service projects do your club participate in?
my club did something to do with water before I was a member in India. If I understand correctly, they actually moved a river.
Wow.
The river was too far away from the closest town, and so they redirected it and made it closer to town.
Oh.
And like I said, it was before I was there, but it sounded pretty cool. And I don't know how many clubs were involved.
Okay.
We do Bridges to Prosperity because we have Norm.
Okay. And I'm familiar with that, but Pat, can you share a little bit about what that achieves?
Well, what they do is they go into this, we're going to be concentrating on Rwanda, but there are rivers there that during the rainy season are impassable. So we basically build a bridge over there so the kids can go to school, people can get to work, and they get medical attention and they can go shopping. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do that. And there are fatalities on those rivers as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Does anyone else want to share an international service project that their club's involved in?
Well, our club did our first global grant last year. It's a continuing project. It's 3 years. It's in Zambia, and we're actually assisting in the development of a skill training school for girls who have basically been swept in sex trafficking. And our second leg to this is a high school scholarship program that we are encouraging clubs in our district to support, to have the girls get a high school education, which will help them in getting a job in Zambia. So that's a project that we did, and we have actually got 23 clubs in 5 districts to support the global grant.
Okay. Well, that's great. Is it okay if I move on? Does anybody else want to share? Okay. Who can tell me how these projects are funded? Where does the money come from to accomplish all of these great things we're doing around the world?
Fundraising.
Okay, so the club is fundraising. Okay, and how can you leverage your club's fundraising?
Help me understand that question a bit more.
Okay, by leveraging, augment what your club is able to raise. So if your club raised $10,000 in a fundraiser, but your international service project budget is $60,000, where can you get more money?
Oh, you can get district grants.
Sure.
Okay. And if it's an international service project, what's your likely source of funding outside of district grants?
Global grants.
The World Fund?
Yes, the World Fund is what contributes a large part of global grant funding. That's excellent. Now, are there any advantages to not using Rotary Foundation funding?
No.
Oh, well, you can do projects that Rotary International can't match, like building buildings.
Exactly. So there can be, and you don't have to use a global grant to do an international service project. If you identify a need and you can raise funds and you have partners and it's feasible, you can still do an international service project without a grant. It's just a little bit harder to get it done without being able to leverage Rotary Foundation money.
Doreen?
Yes.
Would something like Rotary Showcase, would they show a project that a club did that did not involve a grant?
There probably aren't a lot of them, but yes. And when you're putting your project on there, you can ask for other resources. So when Rotary Ideas merged with Rotary Showcase became sort of a crowdsource funding application as well.
Thank you.
Doreen, I was going to comment on that. The way Rotary Showcase is now is you could put any project out there. It doesn't matter if there were any Rotary funds involved or not. You just post it like a social media would be.
Exactly.
And then the other thing we do in our district, we try to really encourage clubs to partner with other clubs, like ask the other clubs in the district if they want to join in. And so that augments the funding too.
Exactly. And in District 5520, that's how a lot of projects get funded, is you'll have 10, 12, 20 clubs get together to help provide the funding on that.
Doreen?
Yes.
I also wanted to mention that you talked about a club that may have raised $10,000, and so some of us who are in smaller clubs, $10,000 is like, oh my goodness, but for some clubs, then that's not a problem. But through every Rotarian every year, we can do our part, or as Paul Harris Society members, and so even if you might belong to a small club or you don't have $10,000 in your pocket, you can still make a huge contribution when all of us put our money in to the same pot. So
yes, many hands make small work. So when I've done global grants and I've asked for assistance from other clubs, sometimes that contribution is $150. It might be $1,500. Everybody contributes what they can. And I would also suggest that participating financially and as a partner with another club that's taking a lead on a project is a great way to become acquainted with global grants. It's a lot easier to get your feet wet with an experienced partner than to try to do everything when you haven't ever done it before. So I think that you made a great point by bringing that up. Let me ask, how do you decide on a project? If you are taking the lead, how do you decide what kind of project to do?
You should do something that's you have the capability to do, the resources.
Okay.
I think it helps to kind of feed off of the maybe strengths or passions of your members. I mean, if you don't have any members that are passionate about a grant that you want to do, they're not going to have that buy-in. So I think it's important to really feed into those passions.
Okay, great.
It should align still with your strategic plan.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm glad that Jeff's session came first, because there's so many dovetails to strategic planning. And like Jeff mentioned, every club kind of has its focus. And just to use Jeff's club as an example, their focus is on children. So that might be a starting point for their decision on what kind of project to do, just as an example. What about assessing? Oh, go ahead. Somebody else was contributing.
That was me, Doreen. I'm sorry. When I would start a project, I would check with the Better Business Bureau of the city and see what is on their calendar to make sure that whatever I wanted to do or our club wanted to do would not be interfering with someone else's project, so that we had like a clear path to get what we needed to get done without interfering with other clubs. Because when you go out there looking for, especially looking for money, public money, or everybody's looking for the same dollar.
Okay.
So trying to stay away from stepping on anyone's toes.
That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. How about assessing community needs? How do you do that? And why would you want to?
Are you referring to an international project specifically?
Yes, that's our topic today.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Specifically, would you be referring to a project you do on a district grant level or a global grant?
Well, as far as I know, I don't think District 5520 funds any international projects with district grant funds. Has that changed this year? Can someone tell me?
I can tell you that we have a limited amount of DDF funds that we can contribute to that kind of grant. We don't make a practice.
Okay, So for the sake of today's discussion, let's assume that that we're talking about global grants, but I do want to clarify that global grants is a major source of funding for an international service project. It isn't required to do. So whether you're doing it with global grant funding or you're doing it with alternative funding sources or a combination, a community needs assessment is a good starting point. And how would you go about assessing what the community's needs are?
Doreen, if I may,
Yeah.
from our end, and this is a Camino Real Rotary Club in El Paso, and we do a lot of work with Juarez. We have a community center for children, and even though we have worked with them for many years, we recently did an assessment to ensure that the needs of the community are met. And what are those needs? Times for the community center, if we need to continue giving food to the children. And we just had a session with all the stakeholders, and that's the way we proceed to do that in order for us to submit a new global grant.
Perfect. Now, what are the pitfalls? And Arturo, you can answer this, or someone else can jump in. What could go wrong if you didn't do a community needs assessment?
Well, you're doing a project that might not be of interest to the community, and the project dies out.
Mm-hmm.
It just wouldn't, it wouldn't match what a need would be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it kind of needs to go along with the need. If it's something superficial, it's probably going to lack meaning.
And if it fails because it's not maintained, because the community doesn't care, then Rotary looks bad.
True.
Right. You don't want to be offering a solution in search of a problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How do you, well, no, before I jump on to the next area, who identifies the need? Oh, please jump in, whoever's
It just occurred to me that we not only look bad to the people who see us waste our money that way, but we might alienate the community by having the arrogance to say what we think they need.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is critical to have a great partner on the other side.
Yes.
Global grants, the host partner, but on district fund, it's basically could be multiple clubs. So what's critical is that relationship is strong and transparent, which doesn't happen, but most times is critical for any project to be successful from both ends.
Right.
Doreen, Tom Lindsay has his hand raised. Tom, go ahead.
Okay.
Doreen, a real example is some clubs in one district decided to drill wells in a rural community overseas, and they got there and the people said, we don't need wells, we need our wells covered. So doing assessment is very important.
That's great. Good point. Okay. And then finally, I think we've already alluded to this. Who identifies the need? The international partner, that would normally be the club in 5520, or the host partner, the club where the community is being served?
Well, it needs primarily to be the host partner.
Good. I would agree with that. Anybody else want to weigh in?
We agree.
Okay. All right. So I do want to mention, and I'll be showing you when we navigate my Rotary, but I do want to share with you that the Rotary Foundation resource document is called Community Assessment Tools. And that's where you go to figure out how to do a community assessment. And then how do you measure and evaluate the success of a project?
Well, it would have to align with what your intentions were.
So I'm going to jump in. Okay, go ahead. You weren't finished. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's my fault. Sorry. But if that was your intent, if that was your plan,
right?
That's how you would know that that accountability piece had been met.
Right. So you mentioned the word plan. When you do your global grant application, you have to share what your goals are. and how you're going to measure outcomes. So that's how you would cover that and assess that. And the Rotary Foundation resource documents for that, and we'll be showing you how to find those, are the Global Grant Monitoring and Evaluation Supplement and the Global Grant Assessment, Community Assessment results. So I'll show you where to find those. And then finally, how do you find resources and other help to plan your project, to get funding, to implement your international service project?
Doreen, I learned of an organization or group called the Technical Cadre, because we have a member that happens to be one of them. And they are, the way I understand it is they're experts in all the different various fields, and they're there to be a resource for any of your projects that you might want specific help with.
Excellent. They are a great resource. Anyone else?
I will say that we relied heavily on past district governors, especially past district governors who were connected to the foundation, and we've done global grants to help identify the pitfalls that typically you fall into in global grants before you even start them. So from my perspective, it was invaluable. We connected with 3 district governors, past district governors, who were invaluable in giving us information about what to do before we even started the project. So
great.
That was critical.
Okay. Anyone else want to share resources that you've used or you know about? Okay, I'll just quickly mention some others. We talked about the Rotary Showcase. So in addition to putting your project on there to look for help, you can also take a look at projects that have been completed and learn from those, and make contact with the Rotary clubs and leaders who implemented those projects. You have district leaders, in addition to past district governors, individuals, Rotarians in our district who have done projects. You have the Rotary Foundation Chair to help you. There are Rotary Action Groups. Has anyone heard of Rotary Action Groups?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So if you were doing a water and sanitation project, for example, there's WashRag, which is an acronym for Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene Projects. And they have a lot of technical support. And then there are non-governmental organizations or cooperating organizations that can assist you.
Maureen, our zone also has a lot of resources available.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned that.
And there's a district in California, I believe it includes San Diego, and that keeps a running list of projects, global grant projects.
Okay.
From across Rotary. And it's actually more detailed than the Rotary Showcase. I'll look up a link to it and post it on chat.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so now I'd like to show you how to navigate for help on My Rotary. Are there any questions or other comments that anyone would like to add before we start navigating? Okay. All right, so I have signed into My Rotary, and as long as you have a My Rotary login, that's something that you should get if you don't already have, you can sign in to My Rotary. And across the top here, you'll see all different areas that will help you navigate to where we're going to go. Well, we're going to take action, and then we're going to go to develop projects. And then we're going to go to life cycle of a project. Whoops. Sometimes the navigation is a little tricky, sensitive here. Okay.
Doreen, you said take action. The second part is develop projects. And what was it?
Life cycle of a project. So everything starts for this particular session at take action and then develop projects, life cycle of a project. And one of the things that you'll notice when you get a little practice navigating the different resources on My Rotary is that there's lots of different ways to get to these resources. This is just one way, and for me, it's the fastest way. And I would also suggest that before you start any project or do your grant application, that you become very familiar with navigating on the Rotary website, because unless you're in there on a regular basis, it's hard to find things. But if you go in once a week, it becomes really easy to find things, and there's such a wealth of resources here. So what I want to do is under planning and organizing, and we're going to go through this kind of quickly because we have about 11 minutes left before I save some time for discussion at the end. In under leveraging your district's local expertise, there is we've got 7 bulleted items here that talk about how to plan and organize a project. So the first thing is to align a project within Rotary's areas of focus. Is everyone familiar with, there are now 7 areas of focus, but if you're using global grant funding, we're still just relying on 6 until next year. Who can tell me what some of the areas of focus are?
Economic development.
Okay.
Women and
maternal
children.
and child.
Great.
Water and sanitation.
Okay. All right.
What is the new one?
The new one is supporting the environment. And then there's also basic education and literacy, basic disease prevention, and peace and conflict resolution. So, and then you want to obtain assistance with project design, planning, and implementation, learning about the global grant process. We mentioned conducting a community assessment, identifying international partners, and you can do that with the help of maybe if you're hosting a friendship exchange, you can partner with people that visit us from other countries. When we have exchange students, again, sometimes they can help you develop partnerships in other countries. People in the district that are already involved in working with other countries. There's a lot of different ways to identify international partners. Going to Zone Institute is another way. Securing funding. And we talked about global grants, in some cases district grants, funding from outside of Rotary, funding from fundraisers. In many developing countries, large corporations that do business there are required to have social responsibility funds, and you can tap into those to help support a project too. You want to be able to ensure the sustainability of a project. And the Rotary Foundation resource document for that is 6 steps to sustainability. And we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. And then you want to establish measurement and evaluation benchmarks. And we discussed that briefly when we talked about having a goal and having specific measurables as part of your global grant project and application. So now we're going to go to acquiring resources. We know kind of generally what we want to do. How do we get there? So here is acquiring resources. See how I just scroll down right there? And look at the first thing is the Rotary Showcase. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's a little slow loading, but it's loading right now. If it takes too long, we'll just abandon ship here, because sometimes the Rotary site is a little slow and we don't have a lot of extra time. Okay, so in the upper right corner, if you can see my cursor jumping up and down, That's where you add a new project. So if you're looking for help, for partners, for funding, that's where you would click. And there is a resource document that tells you exactly how, step by step, to add a new project in Rotary Showcase. But let's just say we want to find a partner. So I'll show you really quick how to navigate. Let's say that I want to find a project that was completed in a district, let's say 3292, that's Bhutan and Nepal.
The screen.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and search and see what kind of project has been completed in that district. Okay, well, here's a project, tree plantation and road divider sanitation. So you can go ahead and take a look at that project and see what they did, how they planned it, who the partners were. And likewise, if you want to contribute to a project, you're not ready to do your own, you can use the filter to find a project that is looking for partners. I'm going to jump out of here unless somebody wants to spend more time in the Rotary Showcase. Okay, so we're back where we were. Okay, I want to go down to related documents now to show you where to find some of the resources that we mentioned earlier. And just point out too, there's some great tips on how to hold a fundraiser, how to find partners, work with partners. Don't forget Rotaractors. They want to get involved too, and interactors. Okay, so in related documents, we don't have time, obviously, to go through all of these, but the four most important ones, in my view, are community assessment tools, and I mentioned that earlier. And it's a PDF, so you can go ahead and save this once you find it. And it's a very in-depth document, 24 pages. Before you try to do a community needs assessment or do a global grant application, this is something you really want to be familiar with. So I'm going to close that. The next one is Guide to Global Grants. That's also a very comprehensive document. And it's pretty likely that if you're doing a project in another country and you're the international partner, not the host, that the host partner is going to have the majority of the responsibility for doing the application. But you want to make sure it's done properly because you're responsible for that money too. And we're talking about a lot of money involved in a global grant. So you should be just as familiar with what is required, what your responsibilities for stewardship are. And so I highly recommend that you become familiar with this. And this is also a separate resource, but you can see page 10 is our 7 steps to sustainability right here.
Doreen?
Okay. Yes.
It looks like when you're sharing, we're not seeing the PDFs when you open them.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, so you can't see it's not showing you the.
Oh, we saw something for a second there.
Yep.
Okay, you can see it now?
No, it
Nope.
came on and then it went away.
Oh, okay. Well, then I won't scroll through this document, but you could see where it was. We're not going to spend a lot of time reading anything while I'm sharing a screen. Let me just point out, this is sort of at the bottom of the page. It is at the bottom of the page in the project life cycle. And the 4 most important resources, we've looked at 2 of them now. The community assessment tools, when you click there, you get a PDF. The Guide to Global Grants, 40-page document, that's also a PDF. Rotary's Area of Focus Guide, and I'm not going to open it because I don't think you can see it, but what that document is, it's an overview of the areas of focus. So that's a good starting point to really understand what the areas of focus are and kind of narrow down your project. And then I mentioned earlier, there's a resource for how to add a project to Rotary Showcase. That is a very good step-by-step guide. It tells you exactly what to click and where and how. So that's the 4th most important document. Now we have just a minute or 2 before I allow some time for further discussion. So I want to show you the other part of the website where we want to navigate. So I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the top. We're going to go back to Take Action and Apply for Grants and Global Grants. So almost exactly where we started before, but this time we went to Apply for Grants. Okay. So in the Global Grant document, let me just go back to my curriculum here. Let me just sort of point out what global grants can fund. We talked mostly about humanitarian projects, and we'll just leave it there because this session is service projects, but global grants can fund other activities as well. We mentioned the World Fund is how they're funded, but the district designated fund also, let me turn off my timer here. Very quickly, when you fund a global grant, your club raises cash. The district will match a portion or all of the cash that you raise. And then the World Fund will match what the district contributes. And I do want to point out that district designated funds also come from the Rotary Foundation, but they're under district control. So this is all the Rotary Foundation. It's not a pot of money that your dues fund, but district funds are under the control and administration of district leadership, and the World Fund is under the control and administration of the Rotary Foundation. But it's all available to help you fund your projects. Okay, and then because I'm out of time, I'm just going to scroll down and let you see what all of your resources are. This tells you how to submit a successful grant application. This covers the monitoring and evaluation. Gives you the links to the cadre of technical advisors. And then your resources and references are here. And there's just 2 others that I want to point out, because when you're doing your global grant, sometimes it's hard to know, well, what should my goal be? You can get your grant approved a lot more quickly if you use the language of the Rotary Foundation. So if we go to our areas of focus resources down here at the bottom, and you pick the one, let's say you're going to do water and sanitation. You're not going to be able to see this, so I'm just going to read it to you. In this PDF, at the very top, it lists 4 goals for global grant funding with water and sanitation area of focus. You can pull the language right out of that PDF and put it in your global grant application. And when it talks about what are you going to achieve and how are you going to measure it, you can pull that language right out of this document and add it to your global grant application. So that is really all the time I have right now to help you navigate this area of Rotary. Once you have all of your preliminary planning and assessment done, then within this site, you can actually apply for the grant. And there is a Word template that you will fill out before you go online to do your global grant application. And the benefit of having that Word template is you can get everything done before you go online and start to enter that. Has anyone ever done a global grant application online? Okay. I'll just leave it there that because you're doing it strictly in the online environment and it's an interactive process, it's really important to use the Word document ahead of time, because you can't change it as easily online as you can in the Word document. So just get your ducks in a row on that Word template and then dive in and go ahead and do it on the Rotary Grant Center application. Okay, well, we covered a lot of information in a short period of time. What are some of your questions or thoughts or comments that you want to share before we end our session in a few minutes?
I have a question.
Yes.
Has anybody used social media as part of their community assessment?
Can you be more specific in what you're thinking?
Well,
how would you
what
use
I'm
that?
thinking is one could look at social media to see what the needs might be in a community. This might be done by the host club. And if we come up with some idea, you could put it on social media in the host area and try to get some feedback from the community as to whether they think it's a good idea or not.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if that's,
I haven't. Has anyone else done that?
has anybody done that even on our local projects?
We have asked as Rotaractors different questions. Like when we did like a raffle, we did ask like the people like what if they would contribute, collaborate more with this raffle if we had a raffle like a specific item. However, like to decide on an activity, not really. But I have to say that going to social media and asking people, I think it's a really good idea. Like people do actually contribute to that. I haven't thought about it, so probably we're going to start doing it for now. It's a good idea.
And it looks like we're out of time on our session, so.
Can I mention something, Doreen, real fast?
Yeah.
I think, Gordon, going back to the question, from our end, it's a little bit complex because we're not, we don't know if the population that we want to look in, supporting has social media and if they have access to computers. So it really depends, I think, on the community you want to work with. So I think that will be one of the things to consider when you're thinking about doing that.
Can I add something too, Arturo, really quickly? A lot of my contacts in developing countries use WhatsApp, and I think that's available to people in these other communities. So that's a good tool. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you and learn your ideas and have an opportunity to share some of the things that I love about doing international service projects. And I'm going to say goodbye and good luck.
Doreen, thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate that and the difference that you've made in the world and through your support of international programs. So thanks, Doreen.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to now turn to Arturo Barrio, then, who is our chair of the district's public information, public relations. I should know exactly your title, but I'm afraid I don't. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you, Doreen. Let's, Arturo, take it away for us.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Doreen. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Arturo Barrio. I'm currently serve as a public image chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Can y'all see it? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Coming.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. So we're going to get started. Let me go ahead and get, there we go. Let me see. Here we go. Perfect. So this is something that I really like, you know, be the change. There's no limit to what we can accomplish when we work together. I'm Rotary, a story about doing my part to change my world. So, you know, this is something that we've been trying to do in the public image from our district, is to share stories about our clubs and our members. Today's session goals is first to discuss public image and publicity as it relates to Rotary and, you know, our members and our clubs. Explore how much our club can benefit from public relations strategy, and also identify our club's target audience and how we can effectively reach it. I wanted to share with you this statistic, which was done in 2015. Rotary made a survey, and they asked the community if they were familiar with the Rotary clubs. And about 60% said that they did not know about a local Rotary club. So this is how important public image is, to make sure people are aware of what we're doing. Who is the club's target audience? And I want to ask you to see if you can come off mute and talk about who's our club's target audience internally. Any volunteers?
I think the club should reflect the community. So for Crete, it is largely a Hispanic population. Mm-hmm. So really we should have representation from that Hispanic portion of the community so that we are serving them. I think that is really important.
Perfect. And now that you think it will be internal or external communication?
External.
External, correct. So we have two types of audiences: our internal, which are our club members, and external, which is our community. So thank you, Janelle, for sharing that, and something that we have doing in our club, which is also in El Paso, which is mostly Hispanic. We try, for example, to post things in Spanish and English in our Facebook post or different posts, just to make sure that we have that external link with our community. So there are, let me go ahead and change this. Here we go. So there are 3 ways to communicate. So from outside to the community, so from our club to outside, that's public image, is how they see us. From inside to our community is public relations. And publicity goes both ways, to our club members and also to our community. And we will be glad to share this presentation for everybody. So I'll send it to Jeff so he can share it. What would you say is the difference between publicity, public relations, and public image? Any volunteer?
Publicity is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Publicity is what we're doing to communicate externally, you'll say?
Yes.
Why is that important, Pat?
Well, from the previous slide, 60% didn't know what the club's doing. If you have some publicity about what you're doing, they might be informed and you might get some more members. Who knows?
That's a great point. And why will that? Because that will encourage other people to be part of something different, to be able to make a change. The other day I heard from somebody that they talked that a brand is a promise. So a Rotary brand is a promise to people to be able to be part of something unique. Any suggestions about public relations? Who would like to jump into that?
That's more of how you act, what your actions are, how you treat each other.
And Nikki, do you think that could be internally or externally or both?
Oh, I think it's definitely both.
Definitely both. Great.
And it's about the relationship. That's what I like in that one, is that it's not just what you do, but it's the relationship that builds.
That's great, Peg, because that will keep us, you know, it's very important for us when we're doing a project, not only to reach people and say, hey, would you like to sponsor? But at the end of the project, let them know what happened, how we helped them, or how we helped the community, and they will be glad to, you know, support again. So that's a very important thing, the relationship. Thanks, Peg. Anybody would like to talk about public image?
That is likely to be how you are perceived.
How we are perceived, and why is that important, Sandy?
Well, if we are, again, looking to increase membership, being observed as a vibrant participant in the community and addressing community issues along with establishing public relations, we just kind of cover a lot of bases of being a partner, a good partner.
Mm-hmm. And that public image applies to how people perceive us just in our club or every time, or, you know, we're posting things online.
All of the above.
All of the above. And we have to share an important public image, you know, because we're Rotary, we're ambassadors of what we're doing. Which of these do you think we have more control over?
Public image.
Public image? Who's that?
Me.
Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I just, you know, well, not really. Most have control over how we function. What do we do? How do we build a positive image through our public relations? But if we don't have a good, solid foundation of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
so, I don't know.
No, that's great. Anybody else would like to share?
I think they're just so woven together. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's one we have more control over than the other, but they all, you know, what you do for publicity may build your public relations, or it may change your image. I mean,
mm-hmm. They're all intertwined. Yes.
Arturo?
Yes, Jeff.
I think one facet is that we may have control over our image until something happens that we didn't control that ends up affecting our image. So if God forbid something happens with one of our members that results in bad publicity that we didn't have control over, that could have as much of a detrimental effect to our image than all of the good works that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have control over the part that we control, but something that we don't control can really affect, typically negatively, what our public image is.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great point, and how we react to it. You know, there could be an incident, and how do we react, and how is that going to have like a replicating event, and say, oh, you know what, this club reacted this way, and I forgot to mention, Jeff and Kathy, can y'all help me with the time? Just let me know a few minutes when we're about.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So we have some tools, you know, that we would like to check and see, you know, for internal and external communication. So newspaper, do you think that's internal, external?
External.
External. Internet, you know, we have Facebook, all the social media. Internal, external?
Both.
It's both. We have seen some clubs that have their own private groups that they communicate with each other, or some that are open to the public. Television.
External.
External. Radio as well. Billboards.
External.
External. Club brochures.
It could be both.
It could be both. Fundraisers.
It could be both.
External.
I think it could be both too. I think you're also internally trying to get your members to help fundraise.
Correct. Kathy, you want to mention something?
I was going to say, you are very observant. You saw me breathe. So I joined Rotary, but then I got really passionate about Rotary then when I became involved in a project. And the 4-way test essay contest, and then also cooking beans for an orphanage in Juarez then. So wasn't really a fundraiser, but it was actually the doing part that got me, that really made me a Rotarian.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes a difference. And what we're talking about, and you're going to see how, like Peg was talking about, how intertwined the different components are. Jeff mentioned this earlier, you know, how important membership is, how important foundation is, but how important public image is. And they go hand in hand. And what you're sharing, Kathy, is so important. Is how we get our members involved in those fundraising projects. Because, you know, you always have some groups that is, you know, the 4 or 5 people that always do everything. But how do we make sure that the whole club is involved so that they can get ownership of those projects? And that will be internal communication. So thank you, Kathy, for that. Is there something about your club that the community recognizes? Who would like to share? Who, you know, we have had a lot of projects within, you know, since COVID happened. What are those projects that your community knows your club from? Anybody? I can share, for example, the Camino Real, we're well known for the children's heart surgery program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when people see the logo, they know that that is to support children in need that need heart surgeries. Anybody else? Any? Mm-hmm. Lori? No?
An Angel
No, Lori.
Fire.
I was going to say we support what's called the Gathering Place, and that's a place for people to go who are homeless or who need food, sustenance, and our volunteers go quite frequently. And so we're really known for that in the neighborhood. It's also this coming year going to be we do something called Rise, Shine, Give, which is a huge community fundraiser. And in the past we've worked with a particular school that was low income, and the Gathering Place will probably be our focus this coming year. So we're really known for those. And Sandy probably can give you a host of many others. She's been in the club much longer than I have that we're known for.
Lori, quick question. Do you use a specific logo for your club, or do you use the Rotary logo?
We use the Rotary logo. And then I know this year the People of Action piece, that's been on all of many of our materials.
Perfect. Anybody else?
We're known for the 4th of July parade that we have, and it's a fundraiser that we use to raise funds that we then donate to various nonprofits in the community. And it's a service to the community itself just to be able to have a parade.
Thank you, Ann. And do you all use the logo, Rotary logo, when you do your programs? Because we participated last year.
Yes.
In Angel Fire, we're known for sponsoring the community blood drives. We do this on a regular basis. And also one of our consistent fundraisers is a July 4th pancake breakfast, which we use to raise scholarship money for our high school students.
Perfect. Thank you, Gordon. Anybody else?
We also
Sandy?
have T-shirts so that when we are on a project together, for instance, there was a bike riding project. I think that's actually going on today. To raise money for a specific opportunity or a specific goal. When we are gathering trash along the highway at a specific place, then everybody has a Rotary T-shirt.
Is everybody familiar with the new logo for Rotary? Can I see a show of hands to say yay?
Yes.
Perfect.
Arturo?
Yes, Jeff?
Arturo, what would you say about I'm sorry, Jeff, excuse me. So why don't you share the new Rotary logo with us if we don't know what it is?
There we go.
On the bottom of his screen.
So this is our new logo, and there's a lot of new, and something that we have seen in the past, and I don't have the slide with it, but something that we have seen in the past is that a lot of the clubs have their own logo, and that has created a lot of confusion because people does not understand if we're only one organization or if we're multiple organizations. So this is our new logo, and there's also a document that is very helpful, which is called Identity at a Glance. And this document gives you all the details about how to use the logo correctly and it's available. So if you have an event coming up and you have somebody from marketing that is going to do your flyers, you can share with this with them, and you will make their life a lot easier. It has all the typography, the different colors, and how to use it. So this is something that Rotary has been keen on. And this year, our focus is to ensure that all our 68 clubs are using, the correct identity. So that way we can keep that same image throughout our district. And people are aware that we're one organization.
Might I add something, Arturo?
Yes, definitely, Nikki. Thank you.
Since the brand center is available to create logos using the new brand, one of the things that I try to encourage our clubs to do is that when they're doing a new event or an event, is that you can actually put the event name while you're still using the new brand, because you can have your Rotary name, and then below it you could have like Polio Day or whatever you want to call it, and it's still compliant. And rather than creating a whole different brand that they have some marketing company do that comes up with something that doesn't even have Rotary in it, they can use the brand center. And then they're also not supposed to use the wheel like in zeros or bicycle spokes or anything like that. And that's very clear if they go through the documents that you've pointed out here.
And thank you for sharing. The brand center is a great tool for everybody, not only for the public relations or image shares, but for everybody. And there's some tools that can help also with the, thank you, Nikki, with the People of Action campaign. There's an app that you can get on Facebook that it makes it a lot more, it makes it easier than going to the website, but I'll be glad to share those with you.
Arturo?
Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
So I think Lori mentioned People of Action a few minutes ago, and you just mentioned it. There's all these different hashtags for Rotary on social media, but to me, People of Action was a profound one, because it even reminds those of us who post that posting people shaking hands in front of a club banner doesn't get a lot of excitement, but posting people working in service projects, that whole notion of action, is a lot more compelling from a messaging standpoint. So going back to public image, if the image is of Rotarians working, that tends to be more compelling and more memorable than shaking hands or someone speaking at a lectern. So I'm really glad for that hashtag. It's a stark reminder.
And thank you, Jeff, for bringing that up. And this picture that we have on the screen is from the Albuquerque Metro. They had a service project a couple of weeks ago, and like Jeff mentioned, it has a lot more impact when we see people working on a service project. And it's really easy to change using these apps or tools to change from just a simple picture that doesn't say anything to something like this one, for example, that says, "Together we inspire. Together we mentor. Together we," so it's a whole campaign that Rotary International came up with to try to shift how Rotary was perceived, because we're people of action, and that's where they want us to go. And all of you are people of action. Everything that you do inspires. We want to get people excited about joining Rotary, and I think this is a great tool to use to get our message across. Nowadays people are not reading a lot of the, articles and things like that, and they take 10, 20, 30 seconds. So if you have an image that catches their attention, they're going to be inspired to be part of it. So in many communities, as we were talking, very few people knew about Rotary exist. How can our clubs do a better at public relations and public image? Any volunteers? What can our clubs do?
Can I go back a second, Arturo? Where do
Yes.
you get those people of action things? Where are they?
So there's two ways to get them. One of them is at the brand center that we talked about, and
Okay.
I'll put it. We'll put it in the chat. But also, if you have a smartphone and you have Facebook, there's an app that is called Photo App People of Action, and you can pull the pictures out from your cell phone and put the what is it called? The images. And it has a lot of different alternatives for Rotaract, Interact. It has also the theme of the year, just the logo, people of action. So that's a super easy to use tool. So I will make sure to share that as well.
Okay.
So how many of your club have a public relations chairman? Or can we put it on the chat? Perfect, Peg, I see your hand up. And Kathy, if you can tell me, Nikki, we see that, you know, our club does. What is their role? What is the public relations chairman role? Anybody would like to share that?
Ours tries to get stuff in the newspaper, post stuff on Facebook, things like that.
And that is very important because as Jeff talked about, and I'm just going to click all of this, because if we don't let the community know what we're doing, it's going to impact our membership, it's going to impact our foundation. So we want to encourage everybody to make sure that you have a public relations chairperson. I know a lot of people don't want to volunteer to that, but it's one of the most important roles in the club because they are the ambassadors of sharing what we're doing, to getting people motivated to become part of Rotary, to be able to get additional support for funding. And right now, one of the things that we're seeing specifically in our club, and I think y'all can relate, we had to cancel a lot of our fundraising because we had huge events, 600, 700 people, and we're trying to rethink, how do we do that? We have planned a virtual raise. How do we make sure that people are aware of how virtual raise work? People are, so where do we meet? It's like, no, you can run from your house, just track it and upload it, and that's your virtual raise. You can participate. But we're also, you know, struggling a little bit on how we get our sponsors involved because they want to see their brands out there. And this is all part of the public relations, is how do we make sure that we mention their support, that we keep them afloat, that, you know, we're going through challenges, but we're working through them. And Jeff mentioned it at the beginning, you know, membership and foundation. I'm going to talk at the end a little bit about the trends in social media and how people are using social media now to be engaged.
Arturo, I wanted
yes.
to share that our person who's in charge of all the media pieces, he's the main reason why this year our club is the Nebraska Volunteer of the Year organization, because he submitted the materials. And again, it was another way to get us in front of, across the state. People here in Lincoln know a lot of the things that we do, but not necessarily everywhere else. So that was another job that he took on. We actually have two people. We have one person who does sort of more what I would call more the traditional pieces. And then we have another person who's more the social media. But again, we're a larger club, so we have a lot of expertise that we can draw from to be able to have people do those pieces.
And that is so important. I think, you know, getting everybody involved and looking for your champions in the club, because, you know, we have amazing resources in our club members. How do we make sure that they're involved, that they share their talent? And most importantly, and that's something that I'm working on, is how do they share their story? You know, Kathy was sharing why she became involved. And I bet you that if we do a little blurb talking about Kathy's story of how she was helping people in Juarez, people are going to relate to that and say, you know what, I want to do that. Where do I go to? Rotary. Thank you, Lori, for sharing that. And there's traditional ways, you know, there's still people that are reading the newspapers, articles, but we have seen in the last weeks through our meetings, you know, this new reality of virtual, as we are today. We have people from Nebraska, we have people from all over. Ann's Club in October is having Mr. Kakita, who's a survivor from the World War, and correct me, Ann, if I'm wrong, participate and give a presentation in their club. And then in the next club, they have somebody, an international speaker from another place. This shows you how now we're closer, having those opportunities to participate. We never know. We have had people participate from all over the world in our different meetings. We just had somebody from Bolivia in our club. So that shows you how this new virtual setting is opening up a lot of opportunities to get to know us better, to get to be closer, even though we might be apart. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is, we talked about, are your projects and activities are designed with public relations in mind? Are you all making sure that that's a component of your project? Also, how can club members be part of the public relations strategy? One of the things that we talked about the other day, we had a meeting with the assistant governors, and one of the assistant governors shared, oh, you know what, we had some of our club members that were not familiar with Zoom. And what did we do? We had somebody help them to go into Zoom, and now they're going to all our meetings. I say, hey, can we interview them? So that way we can put a piece in our Facebook page for all those club members that are afraid of Zoom, that they can get familiar with it and say, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. And those simple stories will make a big difference. Is how do we all are having the same challenges? I didn't use Zoom before this, and now I do it every day, 4, 5, 6 times a day. And we gotta have club members be part of the promotion and the efforts, understanding. And this is something that I wanted to share before we finish. So social media is a trend. 3.8 billion people use social media daily. Current events have caused massive shifts in thinking. We all need to be where they are. We need to be in social media. And I'm not familiar with a lot of the different social media tools, but I'm learning as we go. So we have different accounts, but this is something that it really caught my attention. I saw this from a training the other day. And this spike of social media usage since COVID. 72% of US consumers say they're spending more time on social media per day since the outbreak. And you can see the trends. Generation C is about 84%, millennials 74%, Generation X 68%, and baby boomers about 68%. And this is they asked them, so will you use social media after COVID? About 64% will likely to continue using social media. But you see how the trends shifted. Generation C went down, millennials went down, but Generation X and baby boomers, which is mostly our target audience, we want to be, reaching out to millennials and Generation C because they're the future Rotarians. But you can see, the trends. So how are we going to be continue doing that? Some of the things that we need to your club, if you don't have it yet, is to appoint a public image chair. There are a lot of resources that we can provide to help them. They're not on it alone, and we'll be glad to support, as much as we can. Public image stories. We just started a new Rotarian highlight of the week. If you have somebody, and we all do, story from a club member you want to share, for their personal life, or, they've done great things through Rotary, we'll be glad to highlight them. We're going to be doing that every day. Comments and shares on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have a district page. Please like and share. Make sure to invite people to the different events that we're sharing. If we all did it, we will have a greater outreach. One of the things that we did when we started this year is we went through all the Facebook pages of the clubs to see how big the reach was. And all our websites, Facebook, we're reaching close to 20,000 people. This is how important, the job that you're doing is. We want to make sure that people are aware. All the volunteering, all the hours. If you have a newsletter, send it our way. We will be glad to post it. If you need for us to do an event, post it. What can we offer? We can offer to promote your programs and events in the district social media outlets. Share best practices. What is your club doing that can benefit other clubs? Like I said, comments, shares on Facebook. We know you're out there. We can see that you all seen our links. Like and share so we know that you like it. Give us feedback. We have Twitter, Instagram. We just recently created a LinkedIn page. Guide your club with examples of club branding and much more. We're here to help you. We want to see your club succeed. We want to make sure that, there's a lot of material that can be shared, from Rotary International, from the president of Rotary International. Share the what we share on the district. on your club's website, on your personal. We want to make sure people are aware of everything that y'all are doing. So I will open up for questions. Here's my contact information. Please feel free. That's my cell phone number. I'm not the IRS. When I call people, they think I'm the IRS and they don't pick up. I lived in DC before I came to El Paso, and it was an easy number that I didn't want to change. But feel free to call me. And that's the email for the public image for a district. And thank you, everybody. And I'm going to stop sharing to see if we can entertain any questions or comments. Something that is very simple that I try to ask all the clubs is, when you're doing a meeting of the club, take a picture, send it to us. Why? Because people want to see that we're active. Even though we're, connecting via Zoom, and it might be, just the same picture over and over. Some clubs haven't met since the pandemic. But some people right now are eager to meet, and they want to know where you're meeting and the times you're meeting. So we'll be glad to host you. Anybody else? Any comments, questions before we turn it over to Kathy and Jeff?
Arturo, go ahead, Ann.
Okay. The one speaker for the West El Paso Club that you mentioned that's coming up is, he survived the Hiroshima bombing.
Hiroshima bombing. I knew.
Yeah, he was 7 years old. He was a Japanese American citizen who was visiting his family in Japan at the time of the bombing, and really interesting individual. And just a comment on going on Zoom. When the pandemic hit, we stopped meeting for about 3 weeks and then started on Zoom. And I think if we hadn't moved to Zoom, we would have fallen apart as a club. And we actually have slightly better attendance now than we did when we were meeting in face. A lot of people are anxious to go back to meeting in face, but we're getting good participation on Zoom.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you for sharing, those events with us. So anybody in the district can participate and hear this. I was there for your last meeting while you had the Bridges for Prosperity. This is the great thing about Zoom, that anybody anywhere can participate.
Yeah, I think somebody was trying to ask a question and I talked over them.
Yeah, well, all I was going to say was just kind of an observation. Quite a few of the clubs in our district are pretty active on social media, especially in Omaha and Lincoln. And one of our members is married to a gentleman who's a member of Kiwanis. And when we were having our board meeting last week, she made a comment about when Kiwanis heard that Rotarians were meeting by Zoom, then they decided that's what they should do. So I thought, well, that's probably where they saw it, was on social media. So it didn't hurt at all that we were definitely the leaders in how we were handling this pandemic.
And it hasn't been an easy transition for anybody, but I think the more we do it, and we have, some members that are not familiar with it, but if we can help them, and another campaign we started last week, which I think is important for everybody to know, is reach out, check-in Tuesdays. We have heard stories about some club members that they chair, how meaningful it has been that they received a call from the club president to see if they're doing well. Right now, we don't know how everybody's doing. So we want to make sure that we reach out to those club members that we haven't seen in a while, just say, hey, how you doing? And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how a big difference we're going to make with those club members. And we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we care and that we're here for you. Thank you, Nikki, for sharing that. Anybody else would like to make a comment or observations?
Gordon raised his hand. Gordon, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
There we go.
This is Debbie Cox, and I'm Gordon Cox. I'm Gordon Cox's wife. And of course, I recruited Gordon to join Rotary. I've been in Rotary about 11 years. And when he was inducted in Rotary Club, I think he was the only one inducted with a kiss. But anyway, that's just a little personal note. The comment that I wanted to make, since we just talked about international, was it's really important to make sure your clubs value the international portion of Rotary. that they understand the contributions that Rotary makes worldwide, that they understand the importance of their contributions to the foundation so that Rotary International can still do and continue to do all that it does, and that they recognize that the value of Rotary is much more than their little local club can do. We continue to have that challenge in the northern region because our clubs are so rural, so small, and so far removed from the center of action that they just often forget that the bigger Rotary does a lot. And it's sometimes difficult to get them to contribute to the foundation, difficult to get them to participate in district functions because they just want to do their own thing in their own community, which is fine, but I think it's very important that we work hard to make sure they understand the bigger value of Rotary. Now, I haven't been listening 100% because Gordon's been participating. Did you bring up the topic that when we apply for a global grant now, Rotary is not matching funds? And why is that? And how do we justify that? How do we explain that to our clubs?
Debbie, go ahead, Arturo.
No, that's a great question. And I think Doreen is not with us anymore. But I will let to my other colleagues to see if they have an answer for that. I think it's fairly recent. I think it's been less than a month that this change happened. And I'm going to probably bring 2 cents on that. I think is related what I've heard. I think to the reduction of what's happening with during COVID. But I will let everybody, anyone pitch on that.
My suggestion would be let's share that with the district pastors to Governor Tom Walker, and so that way then we've got an informed, authoritative answer rather than whatever. So that would be my suggestion at this point. Okay, thanks
Perfect.
For the question though, Debbie.
Arturo,
We'll make sure he gets that.
Yes, Jeff.
I would add to that, and Doreen is on, but she's on mute, so she may have stepped away. But she did mention it, and it's. You talk about public image and messaging. This is very informational and really needs a lot of clarity because the foundation is already kind of confusing, right? So as we share this message, and as I understand it, they're still going to match the district contribution to global grants. They're just not going to match the club's contributions to grants. So just the pure information part has to be very clear, and then kind of getting over the emotional part of losing a little bit of match that we used to get. So this is going to be very challenging messaging.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good point, and I will just bring up that they will be conducting a foundation education session in November. It is advertised on the district website, so we can probably learn more about it then. And you're right, Jeff, it may be best not to communicate this to the clubs till we truly understand it. What I heard Tom Walker say in the last AGLG meeting was that Rotary would continue to match district grants, but it would no longer match global grants. Now, if it's going to at least match the district contribution to global grants, that would be great. But Kathy said that too? Okay, good. But that's better than the news that I heard on the AGLG call. So I just wanted to mention to everyone, there will be a foundation training session in November. Thanks.
Okay,
thank you.
I'll quit butting in.
More than welcome to join us.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Well, we are a couple of minutes early, and so let's. But we'll take a break, and we'll meet